Tonight on Unsolved Mysteries.
When Monika Rizzo disappeared, an anonymous phone call led the police to her house. But what investigators found buried in the backyard was beyond anything they ever expected. Is blood thicker than water? Not if you ask convicted felon Frederick Young. He's spending the rest of his life in prison for crimes he insists he did not commit. So who's the real culprit? According to Frederick, none other than his identical twin brother, Cedric. What would you do if someone sold you a house haunted by some very nasty ghosts? This family in England decided to take the former owners to court. By all accounts, Sharon Kinne was a woman who knew what she wanted. What she wanted most was sex and money. But would she kill for the big payoff? Police say a trail of victims leaves little doubt. Join me for these stories of heartbreak and intrigue on Unsolved Mysteries.
Hello, can I help you?
Is this the San Antonio police?
Yes, it is.
I'd like to report a murder.
Okay.
A woman, Monika Rizzo, was murdered.
And who killed her, sir?
She was murdered by her husband, Leonard Rizzo. You can find her bones in the backyard of their house. There's a skull and some other bones, too.
It sounded like a gruesome prank, but the police in San Antonio, Texas wasted no time checking it out. They intended to question Monika Rizzo's husband, Leonard, but that would have to wait. Just at the moment the detectives arrived, Rizzo was having some sort of a seizure.
Mr. Rizzo?
Your dad.
How long has he been like this?
I don't know. I was upstairs for a while.
Mr. Rizzo?
At first, the detectives suspected a drug overdose. They were later told it was one of a series of seizures Rizzo had recently been suffering. With Leonard Rizzo on his way to the hospital, the police questioned his older son. He lived across town. He said he hadn't seen his mother for about a week.
Do you know when she's expected back?
No.
You mind if we have a look around?
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
Monika's clothes still hung in the closet. Her car was parked in the driveway. Nothing seemed to be missing except Monika Rizzo. Next, the backyard. The detectives did find bones, but they clearly belonged to some kind of an animal. The anonymous caller appeared to be wrong. There was no sign of a body, no clues to murder. Where was Monika Rizzo? For her co-workers at a government office in San Antonio, the mystery had begun 1 month earlier on May 5th, 1997. That day, Monika Rizzo left her desk apparently on her way to lunch. She walked out without even taking her purse. After 8 days of repeated phone calls, Monika's boss finally reached her at home.
She told me that she wasn't feeling very well, and she wanted to let me know that she was going to be out the rest of that week, and she would be returning to work Monday of the following week, which would have been May the 19th.
But the 19th came and went. Monika Rizzo never returned to work. Leonard Rizzo claims that a few days later, he simply woke up one morning and she was gone. He never reported it to the police.
I was very confused. It made no sense. My wife and I were very close. There was no reason for me to believe she wouldn't be coming back wherever she'd gone. I have faith in her. I just chose to wait.
Hello.
Is this the San Antonio police?
Yes, it is. Can I help you?
I reported that Monika Rizzo had been murdered several weeks ago.
Yes, I remember.
You need to go back and search their house again. Leonard Rizzo killed his wife. The bones are in the backyard. They're under a pile of tires by the fence. Look under those tires.
Again, the police responded out there along with some homicide detectives that went out there and took a look, and they did find some what appeared to be human bones.
Detectives collected a skull, a number of bone fragments, and even a bag filled with what appeared to be human flesh.
Tom, take a look at this.
Leonard Rizzo had some explaining to do.
These bone fragments there in my yard are an absolute mystery to me, as big a mystery as my wife's disappearance. To me, there's no question. To me, someone is trying to draw attention from themselves. Someone is doing this to me.
Inside the house, police found potential evidence of a violent struggle. Several sections of bashed or blood-spattered drywall.
Basically, I just got very, very emotional about missing her and attempted to beat up the house, I guess you could say. The house won. I got the worst end of it.
Detectives also learned that Monika's co-workers had been so worried about her that on one occasion they asked the police to check on her. The officer who responded believed there was reason for concern.
Hello, is something wrong?
Monika Rizzo?
Yes.
I'm with the San Antonio police. Some people at your office asked that I stop by. Are you okay?
Yes, I'm fine.
It looks like there's some bruising on your face.
No, I just fell. I'm fine.
Is your husband here?
Yes, but he's very sick. I've been taking care of him.
You sure you're okay?
Yes.
There was no domestic abuse. There was no domestic violence. My wife and I were deeply in love. We are deeply in love. We've been married 26 years, going on 27 years now. It's a long time.
Police brought in a team of archaeologists from the University of Texas to excavate the site.
We literally crawled across this area using our trowels and moving the roots and moving the grass blades and looking down beneath the grass. And every time we found a bone fragment or something the police department considered might be evidence, we'd put an orange pin flag out.
Before they were done, the yard was dotted with dozens of orange flags.
When you find bone in an old archaeological site, the bone is very dry. This bone still had a greasy feel to it. So we knew it had not been there very long, but at the same time, it had been there more than a week or a couple weeks. There was no soft tissue still attached to it.
There were bones everywhere, even inside the barbecue grill.
I picked it up and looked at it, and I was sure it was a human hand bone because it has a distinctive shape, although it's very small, maybe a half an inch or so.
What do you got?
The archaeologists sifted the ashes, finding more bones, all of them from human hands.
Sure?
No one is sure how many hands.
Yeah, well, the bones we found were under these tires.
Over 8 days, Dr. Hard and his team collected more than 200 bone fragments. Most of them had been chopped into pieces less than 3 inches long.
And what do you think could cause that?
I don't know, something mechanical.
We felt it was some kind of machine, some type of chipper shredder has been discussed quite a bit. It's the only machine that we can come up with that could possibly account for this type of breakage. You wouldn't get it with a saw, you wouldn't get it with a knife, you wouldn't get it with a lawnmower. We can't think of anything else that would break up bone like this.
Once again, police had questions for Leonard Rizzo.
I've never even operated a wood chipper. I've never rented anything in a rental store other than a car dolly, maybe a trailer. No, I did not operate a wood chipper. Never have.
The case of Monika Rizzo at this point is being investigated as a missing persons case. The human remains that were found in the backyard of Leonard Rizzo We have no knowledge how those people died. We don't know the cause of death. We haven't established that a crime did in fact occur.
Whatever happened in his backyard, and whoever it happened to, Leonard Rizzo continues to insist he had nothing to do with it.
Those bone fragments and such, where they came from, I don't know. How they got there, I don't know, and I adamantly did not kill them or anyone else.
They look so much alike, even their mother can't tell them apart. Is it possible the police made the same mistake? The final appeal of Frederick Young. June 9th, 1993, midnight, a motel in Greensboro, North Carolina. The 5 young people gathered in the room never knew what hit them. The heavily armed robbers took cash and jewelry. It was all over in a matter of minutes. Based on eyewitness testimony from one of the victims, police arrested 2 men. One was 22-year-old Frederick Young. He was convicted of the motel robbery as well as 2 others that same night. He will be in prison until his 91st birthday. Rest assured that every hour of every day of every one of those years, Frederick Young will, like many other convicted felons, be claiming he is innocent. But Young's claim may hold more water than most. He says his is a case of mistaken identity. Incredibly, Frederick insists that the real robber was his brother. In fact, his identical twin brother, Cedric Young. That accusation has forced their mother to make an impossible choice. Which son to support? And indeed, she supports Fred, the son in prison.
We were very close, closer than anybody, you know. We dressed alike all the time. Did mostly everything together. It was a bond there, you know what I'm saying? Much greater than any bond, you know, like friends or anything, you know, or any other relative in the family. Just close.
Cedric Young, or Ced, was born 4 minutes before Fred on December 29, 1971. From the start, it was virtually impossible to tell the twins apart. Their relatives still have a tough time, even their own mother.
Cousins, aunts and uncles, sisters and brothers, nobody knows Ced from Fred. If you don't see him when they do something, you don't know who did what. If I can't do it, I know you can't do it because I'm the one that had him.
June 10, 1993. The night after the motel robbery, luck was not on Fred's side. Everything that could have gone wrong for him did.
How you doing, officer? What's the problem?
Did you know your license plate light is out?
No, I did not. I'm sorry.
This your driver's license?
Sure, no problem.
Fred acknowledges that he had a history of trouble with the law. Otherwise, he might have acted differently.
You know what, officer? I think I left it home. I don't live that far away.
What's your name?
Cedric Young.
Spell it.
C-E-D-R-I-C.
I gave him my brother's name because I didn't even have any driver's license. You know, my brother did.
Keep an eye on him.
It seemed like a good idea at the time to use Cedric's name instead of his own. It turned out to be anything but.
Cedric, turn around, put your hands behind your back.
What's the problem, officer?
Your license is revoked.
License revoked? Cedric Young?
Yes, you're under arrest for driving under a suspended license.
Oh, this is ridiculous.
And at the same time, he asked me, could he search my car? I told him, sure he could.
Things were about to go from bad to worse for Frederick Young.
He started searching the passenger side, and he reached in and grabbed a bag.
Cedric, would you like to explain what this is doing in your car?
Officer, I swear to you, I never seen that gun before in my life.
That same gun was later linked to the holdups. At the police station, Fred came clean about the mix-up with Cedric's name. It was too late. An incriminating chain of events had been set into motion. Fred Young was charged with 6 counts of armed robbery. So was his alleged accomplice, Chris Ross, a boyhood friend of the twins. Fred's trial got underway a year later. During the court proceedings, it would come out how the sawed-off shotgun got in his car. It was just one of many revelations to come.
Now, what happened after they came into the room?
Buster and Tina was in the bathroom.
The first jolt, the testimony of Deborah Haney, one of the motel robbery victims. She claims she recognized Fred during the holdup.
Chris opened the bathroom door where Buster and Tina was at, and he had a gun on him. And then Fred came in the room where we was at, and he had Larry and Veronica to lay down on the bed.
Now, you say Chris and Fred. Do you know their names?
Well, I learned their names afterwards. Fred's face was familiar to me. I had seen him around just in various places in Winston.
When you say Fred, do you see that person here in this courtroom?
Not so, says Fred.
When she pointed directly at me, that's when I kind of figured in my head, you know, if she think it was me, it's definitely my brother.
Fred claims it hit him like a bolt of lightning, that until that moment, it had never occurred to him that his twin Cedric might have been Chris Ross's partner in crime.
How long did it take for all this to happen, from the time they came in the door?
Less than 10 minutes. A little more than 5, but less than 10 minutes.
Fred says that in his mind, the picture was becoming crystal clear. So was his belief that his attorney was not doing a good job.
I told him right there in the courtroom, I said, subpoena Chris Ross. He's like, no, I can handle it from here. But it didn't happen that way. He didn't do anything.
Not long after the trial, Fred's attorney would have his license to practice law suspended for various violations, including neglecting his client's cases.
I just really feel like that he was being misrepresented by a lawyer. He never called Fred. He never wrote Fred a letter. As a matter of fact, he never even accepted a call coming in from Fred.
What time did you leave your sister's place to go to the bowling alley?
According to Fred and his mother, it was a case of mistaken identity that led to a miscarriage of justice. Chris Ross has since freely admitted that he put the shotgun in Fred's car without Fred's knowledge.
It was my shotgun, and I put it up under the car seat. I didn't come forward with my information for the trial because nobody tried to contact me to give my side of the story about him being charged for something he did not do.
Chris Ross plea bargained and received a 20-year sentence. Frederick Young, insisting he was innocent, refused to plea bargain and was found guilty of 6 armed robbery counts. He was given a separate sentence for each conviction, a total of 68 years.
The way my client was sentenced, even if he were guilty of something, we think the sentence is out of whack. But it makes it even worse when he's not guilty to get that kind of sentence.
He never said, I'm innocent, it was my brother you want, not me. He waited until it went to trial. Trial didn't go as he hoped it would, I think. And this became a desperate effort on his part to throw the blame elsewhere.
During the trial, you know, I had no idea, you know, that my twin brother committed these robberies until the lady pointed directly at me. That's when I come to the conclusion I knew it was my brother.
At some point in time, did
A year after the verdict, Frederick got another chance. The Court of Appeals agreed to consider new evidence. Chris Ross took the stand, hoping to straighten out the Cedric versus Frederick predicament once and for all.
And while you and Cedric Young were in Guilford County, did the two of you, in fact, commit these 6 armed robberies?
Yeah.
These same 6 armed robberies that you pled guilty to?
Yeah.
They picked up the wrong one. Fred wasn't with me, it was Sid that was with me. The reason why they picked up Fred because he got caught with my gun. So they figured he was the one that used them.
I'm willing to take any polygraph test, anything, whatever it has to take to prove that I'm innocent, you know, I'm willing to go along with it.
A lie detector test has never been done. Chris Ross's uncorroborated testimony failed to persuade the judge. Frederick Young was denied a new trial. With his legal options limited, Fred took his case to the court of public opinion. On a national talk show with millions of viewers playing jury, the question was put to Said, are you the guilty party?
No, I'm not. To be in his shoes, I would be saying the same thing, exact same thing.
Why you won't lie, man? I'm a brother, man. Dang. Don't do me like that, man. Quit making me suffer for something you done, man.
If I was a rich man, if I had money, I would spend all of my money to get my brother out of jail. I'll spend all my money. I would spend all my money to get a high-paying lawyer to get my brother out of jail because I miss him.
Is Fred languishing in prison for crimes his brother said committed? Or is it simply a desperate ploy to gain freedom at all costs? As far as the courts are concerned, the case is closed. But if the twins' mother were the judge, the verdict would be very different.
I'm hoping that something will come out of this that I'm dealing with now, that Fred is released and he can go on with his life. And Said is punished because he has done a great hurt to me and everybody.
Next, what would you do if you discovered the house you just purchased is haunted? You're about to meet a couple who are taking the former owners to court. There's a certain charm to Loews Cottage. The 250-year-old farmhouse sits on an idyllic piece of property in the English countryside. It's an oasis of peace and quiet, though it may have a few unearthly surprises.
It's very frightening. We think the place is haunted. We've seen ghosts, we've had articles thrown about, we've seen candles move.
All the time, the inside of your stomach's churning up, expecting something to happen. Even when it's quiet, you're still on edge.
Another story about a haunted English farmhouse? Not quite. The Smiths are suing the home's former owners for selling them a house they say is haunted. The previous owners have filed their own lawsuit. They believe the Smiths are trying to get out of paying for the house by telling a ghost story. It's a precedent-setting trial that could rock the English legal system. Which side do you think has the most compelling case? The story begins in May of 1994. Andrew Smith and his wife Josie moved their family to an old farmhouse in the remote hamlet of Upper Mayfield. They believed it would be the ideal place to raise their two children. And because the home was badly in need of repairs, the Smiths bought it at a bargain price.
We wanted to buy that house, do it up and sell it, and with the equity that we would have made on the place, we wanted to buy another place. But about 6 weeks after we'd moved in, we noticed things happening.
But if you stand over here, it's really cold.
You'd walk into our bedroom and the temperature would be a couple of degrees lower than the rest of the house. A definite temperature drop. The rooms, you could never really see the ceiling. There was always this hazy. It was always hazy.
But the former owners, two sisters who grew up in the cottage, say they never experienced anything out of the ordinary.
Our parents, myself and my sister, never saw any ghosts or heard any strange noises or anything associated with the paranormal.
I don't think it's haunted. I lived there for about 25 years, never saw anything, heard anything.
But the Smiths claim life at Loews Cottage was a nightmare.
You get this feeling when you're in the room that if this thing was a person, with its little finger it could flick you straight across the room.
One night we stayed awake till about 3 in the morning, then we just fell asleep through exhaustion. And within minutes of us falling asleep, I felt this pressure on my throat, strangling me.
When Josie was being strangled, that's what you call fear. That made my hair shoot straight up.
One night I was in the kitchen that was downstairs. It was about 8 o'clock at night, and I turned round and I saw this young girl. She had the old gathered top with the bodice on and the gathered skirt, and I thought, oh, there's somebody outside. It wasn't until I thought about it that I realised that I could see the window frame through her.
That's rubbish, absolute rubbish. We never saw any ghosts, no unusual happenings. There was nothing flying around rooms. There was no vile smells and mists. Nothing at all.
Convinced that some demonic force was living in Loews Cottage, the Smiths went to the local church for help.
We have requests that come from individuals who are very deeply upset to people who have buildings that are causing them problems, various smells, apparitions, anything really that is to do with the supernatural or, the occultic or that kind of area. And I would say that Loews Cottage comes out fairly near the top of the list of this.
The Smiths asked Reverend Mockford to bless their home.
After the vicar blessed the place, the house just lit up everywhere. It just seemed so light. When you see the reaction to a prayer in the house, that's when you're kind of really amazed, and there's no two ways about it. There is definitely something there.
The Smiths believed the vicar's prayers would finally bring them peace. But later that evening,
I don't know. Perhaps you left the timer on. I'm going to switch it off, mate.
Okay. Then the Smiths began to make inquiries in the local village.
So you're the young couple that's taken over Loews Cottage. Everything all right? Well, there's a story about that cottage, Many years
They
ago,
soon found out that they were the only ones in town who didn't know about the history of Loews Cottage. The tragic story had been handed down in local legend for 140 years. During the 1860s, a milkmaid named Elaine Herring lived in the cottage along with her lover, Joseph Phillips. The Smiths checked the town records and say the young couple did exist. Local folklore says that Elaine was murdered by her employer and died in the cellar of Loews Cottage, which today is the home's kitchen. When Joseph Phillips received word of Elaine's death, he hung himself in despair next to the body of his lover. Or so the story goes.
The cottage isn't haunted. The cottage has no reputation in Upper Mayfield of being haunted, or in Ashbourne for that matter. It's all untrue. There's no record whatsoever of Elaine Herring and Josie Phillips ever living at Loews Cottage.
Local newspapers began carrying accounts of the haunting. When the Smiths tried to refinance their mortgage, the bank refused, saying that publicity had devastated the home's value. With no money to move, the Smiths filed a lawsuit against Susan Melbourne and Sandra Podmore.
We definitely believe that they should have told us the house is haunted. We have got to tell people, if anybody in their right mind want to buy our house, we have got to tell them what has happened and the fact that it's haunted. And I think the same should apply to them.
If I set this one up here, you set yours up there.
Well, this one over here.
The Smiths hired 2 paranormal investigators to videotape their home, hoping to get evidence to support their case. The investigators used a night vision camera and placed 2 candles to capture evidence of a haunting. Suddenly, the lower candle seemed to tumble down the stairs. Then the candle on an upper step appeared to fly through the air.
We was, well, literally scared to death. We didn't know what to think, what to do, but you just definitely got the presence that there was somebody with you. They're definitely not imagining it, because we've had the experience ourselves.
The two sisters think the whole thing is ridiculous.
Absolute rubbish. Nothing happened at Loews Cottage.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith have come up with this story about the ghosts to try and get out of pain.
Had we known any of this, any of it at all, we wouldn't have bought the place. We wouldn't have steered clear of it. We should have been given the choice. If anybody had bought our house instead of us with a weak heart, I'm sure it would have killed them.
When we return, some say she was the Black Widow of Missouri, the baddest of bad girls. Have you seen Sharon Kinne? Some people might call Sharon Kinne a man's woman. That is, if you're a man who likes his women fast and loose and ruthless. Word has it that in her youth, Sharon took on lovers at the drop of a hat and was well-versed in the art of deception. She was the very definition of a bad girl. In the eyes of the law, a lethal Black Widow. Today, she is still a wanted fugitive, whereabouts unknown. March 19, 1960, Independence, Missouri. A sheriff's deputy was summoned by a distraught Sharon Kinne, then 20 years old.
I know my husband. I was in the bathroom. I didn't know what was happening.
Well, calm down, Miss Kinne, calm down. Where is he?
He's in the back bedroom.
Sharon's husband, James Kinne, had been shot once in the back of the head. A .22 caliber target pistol lay in plain sight. There was no sign of a struggle. 25-year-old James Kinne would die en route to the hospital.
Mrs. Kinne, I realize how difficult this time is for you, but if you could tell us exactly what happened.
The next day, Sharon Kinne was interviewed by detectives.
James was cleaning his gun.
Her grief and heartbreak were convincing. Her bizarre story demanded no less. James was in the bedroom cleaning his pistol. Sharon was in the bathroom putting on makeup. James laid down for a nap. The couple's 2-year-old daughter, Dana, wandered into the bedroom.
Daddy, show me this. Show me this. Show me this. Daddy, show me this.
And then I heard the shot. And I ran in there, and there he was, just lying there.
Was it common for him to keep the gun loaded?
I thought she was credible, and she was very distraught, and it was very genuine. And then, for me, it became a problem of if the little girl did it, what a shame, what a terrible tragedy.
In fact, it was beyond terrible. Sharon Kinne was blaming 2-year-old Dana for the death of her own father. For the police, doubt began to blossom.
We were skeptical about the little girl, but unfortunately, they were the only witnesses there. There was no one else to talk to except Sharon Kinne.
All they could do was just buy into whatever it was Sharon was telling them, and she was very convincing. And that's not to their discredit. When Sharon told you something, it was expected that you believe it. You were just expected to believe it. She was that good.
She was certainly good enough for the insurance companies. In short order, Sharon collected on policies totaling $29,000, equal to more than $150,000 today. Sharon moved on, quickly. She paid cash for a sporty new car and allegedly took up with a married man she bought it from.
She wanted the salesman to leave his wife and his children and take care of her.
Hi, sweetie.
She wanted it. In her mind, whatever Sharon wanted, Sharon got.
But the salesman apparently had no intention of leaving his family, even though Sharon told him she was pregnant. Some people say Sharon Kinne knew exactly how to separate the car salesman from his wife.
Hello, Patricia Jones? I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but I have some information about your husband. Well, he's been having an affair with my sister. I'd like to get together with you if I could and talk about this a little more.
Patricia Jones reportedly agreed to a meeting. She asked a friend to go with her.
Hi. Patricia? Sharon? Yeah,
Hi.
nice to meet you.
You too.
Hi. You know, why don't we take a drive? Come with me and we'll go talk somewhere else, not here.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Look, I'm gonna take a quick ride with her.
Are you
and
sure?
I need to do this.
Okay, just be careful.
Patricia Jones never made it home that night. When word got around the next day, Sharon herself volunteered to help in the search.
All right, well, where should we check next?
I don't know. We've checked the east, southeast.
Sharon enlisted the aid of yet another lover, John Boldus. Perhaps not surprisingly, their search yielded no sign of Patricia Jones.
The north side wall.
According to John Boldus, Sharon suggested that they finish off the evening at a popular lover's lane, a spot Sharon was reportedly very familiar with.
It's been a while since we've done this.
It's been too long since we've done this.
Yeah, I think you're right. What?
Do you see that?
See what?
Oh my God. Don't let it be what I think it is. My friend's wife was wearing a yellow dress just like that yesterday. Oh God, don't let it be her.
She makes this young man get out and look, and it scares the living bejesus out of him, because there is the salesman's wife laying shot and dead in the grass.
We gotta go to the police.
Why?
Because she's dead. We have to go to the police.
All right, fine. Go to the police, but you know what? Drop me off at home first, and don't tell them I was with you.
Straight away, he gave Sharon away. Straight away, he told him, well, I wasn't out here by myself. I was out with Mrs. Sharon Kinne. And the name just set off all kinds of bells and whistles in the investigator's head because they remembered her story from just a couple months before that.
Prosecutors wasted no time. Sharon Kinne was charged with both the murder of Patricia Jones and the murder of her husband, James. The circumstances were sensational. And across Missouri, Sharon Kinne became a household name. The Patricia Jones case was tried first and considered the strongest, even though the murder weapon, another .22 caliber target pistol, was never located. By all accounts, Sharon's newfound celebrity charmed the all-male jury.
Sharon had control of that courtroom. She had control of the jury. She had control of the spectators. Everybody's attention was focused on Sharon Kinne. Even to the point, the second day of the trial, after the trial started, Sharon came moseying in late, fashionably late, probably in her mind. The trial went on for about 10 days. The jury came back after deliberating only an hour and a half for the verdict of not guilty. The courtroom erupted in cheers. Jurors came out of the juror box and went over and got Sharon's autograph. People in the audience came and got Sharon's autograph.
Kinne's glory would be short-lived. In the case of her husband, she was convicted of murder in the first degree. The star witness for the prosecution was none other than Sharon's sometime boyfriend, John Boldus. He testified that Sharon had once offered him $1,000 to kill her husband. Sharon Kinne was sentenced to life in prison. But in March of 1963, the Missouri Supreme Court overturned her conviction on a legal technicality. She was released on a $25,000 bond, pending retrial.
So what do you think of that? Does that look too short for you on that side?
In no time, Sharon had a new lover, a man who listed his occupations as hairdresser and blacksmith.
You know, I'm surprised you know so much about all this.
Well, you know, I'm full of surprises.
Sharon meets a traveling nomadic type fellow in the unemployment line in Kansas City in the summer of 1964.
You are.
They fall in love. Decide that what they're going to do is they're going to go to Mexico on a pre-marriage honeymoon. Now, that's okay for Sharon to go to Mexico. She can go to the moon. Even though she's under $25,000 bond, there's no geographic restrictions.
Frankie, I'm so excited. I've never been to Mexico before. I want margaritas and
we're gonna have all
piñatas.
Once in Mexico, a series of misadventures landed Sharon in a seedy hotel room with yet another man. She would later tell the local police that she acted in self-defense. The Mexican authorities never bought the story. Sharon Kinne was convicted of murder and sentenced to 13 years in prison. She served less than 5. In December of 1969, Sharon Kinne apparently squeezed through an unguarded window and vanished.
Sharon Kinne could have been somebody. She could have used her intelligence and used her wit. She could have been a pioneer woman, you know, in politics or in academia or anything. But she chose it to go the other way around. She let greed, avarice, and promiscuity rule her life.
James Hayes is convinced that Kinne is alive and well. She may have stayed in Mexico, or she may have gone to Alaska where she has relatives. Computer aging shows how Sharon Kinne might look today at the age of 57. A final intriguing footnote. Among Sharon Kinne's belongings seized in Mexico was a .22 caliber target pistol that killed Patricia Jones. Because of double jeopardy laws, Kinne cannot be retried for that crime. However, she can still be tried for the murder of her husband. Join me next time. Perhaps you hold the key that can solve a mystery.